Welcome one, welcome all to DeFi Crypto and Airdrops. I am Mike, aka Veteran Crypto, and with me today is my main dude, Kellam, over at Bitlab Academy. How you doing, brother?
Hey, we got two vets on stage today. I'm a
Oh,
veteran of the
I
U.S.
love it.
Air Force, baby. Let's go.
Hell yeah. I did Army and Marines for 22 years, so I jumped around a little bit.
There you go.
But yeah, let's go ahead and jump on into it. Markets are looking great today. I'm not going to get too deep into the markets. Discover Crypto, one of our brother channels, does a great job in the mornings. Hitting up all the hot news. Kind of as the markets wake up there on the East Coast. Kelly does a great job. Blockchain Basement. All of our actually here. I'll just share here our channel here on YouTube, DeFi, Crypto, and Airdrops. But right down here, you got brother channels, got Blockchain Basement, Discover Crypto, Bitlab Academy. My boy Jeff over at Blockchain Report, he does a really good job dissecting airdrops. He's on this channel with me Mondays and Saturdays, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And then, of course, I got my show on Sunday nights where I have 3 or 4 guests on every Sunday, and we just drink whiskey and talk shit. So,
That sounds like fun to me. Shit.
dude, I'll have to have you on sometime. You have a good time. My brother and one of my buddies, he's a financial advisor, and my brother is very successful. Has a couple of law firms down in Texas and title companies, and so we talk finance and politics and. When they thought there was freaking a city under the pyramids and all that stupid shit. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good time. Um, Here's my ex, just veteran, the number 4 crypto. Then here we got
It's
Kelly.
your screen's not showing. It's on the
Oh
YouTube
shit,
still. There
appreciate
you go.
that, brother. Here's Kelly over at Bitlab Academy. Make sure you give him a solid follow. And on X, he is at Kelly Kellam. And with that, I'm just going to touch on a couple of things that specific to DeFi that will kind of keep all of you out there in the know. So this morning, I found on Uniswap that they are actually incentivizing some of the pools. So on top of your usual, APY or APR, they're actually paying out 10,000% in their Uni token on, and it's mostly ETH pools. I think it's to incentivize people to provide liquidity on these ETH pools. I don't know if they're anticipating a lot of volume here soon, with the markets pumping, but might be a good opportunity. Check out, the details, see if that's something you want to get involved with. Have you done any DeFi, Kelly?
I used to partake pretty actively in DeFi about three and a half years ago. I have been more focused on just the trading, investing, finding good positions to take, but also, I mean, I don't want to go into the whole story, but there's been a lot going on in the background, in the back of what's going, with us over here with Discover and Bitlab, and there's a lot of focus that has been very, very focused in certain areas with business rebuilding and that sort of stuff. But
Absolutely.
I was talking with Tim this morning, Tim here in the office, about DeFi and some strategies that I want to employ or deploy into the market. And also, I think it's great. And if you're open to it, because I know you're going to be on BitLab Academy tomorrow, but if
Yeah.
you're open to it, in this conversation today here on DeFi Crypto Airdrops channel, I'd love, ask me any questions you'd like. I'm happy to talk TA as well, but I'd love to also I don't want to say reverse interview, but I'd love to ask you some questions as well, because here's the deal. And I want everybody out there that's watching, pay attention to this. I am in the market all day long, every day from when I wake up to go to sleep. And everybody here in our office, there's 6 or 7 of us. It's nonstop. And I'm sure you are too, veteran. And there's one truth that I can tell you about crypto. There is not a crypto expert that is out there, because to be an expert in this entire arena, there's no possible way to track every coin that's being deployed, every news that's going out, DeFi,
It's
what's going
impossible.
on with RWAs, what's going on, I mean, with the markets. there's certain sub niches that people can dominate and do very well in. But I've been so focused on trading, position, portfolios, education with Bitlab Academy that in the 3 years that I haven't focused a ton on DeFi,
Mhm.
I can't tell you what the best mechanisms are. I can't tell you what the newest tools are because it was a headache and a mother and half 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I know that there's a lot of tools now that ease and simplify a lot of that stuff. And also, I just want to make sure that I'm doing it in the right way, in the smart way,
Yeah.
and also not putting myself too high at risk. So I'm happy. I'm not only happy, I'm overwhelmingly excited. One, to have that we have you brought into the fold here with the Hit Network family, and that I can answer some of the questions you have about what I do and what's going on with TA. Because I know in DeFi, from my history, I know that one of the most critical things is defining ranges, when you're going to go
Yes.
into ranges, when you're going to exit ranges, and making sure that you're positioned within that to capitalize on it. Now, on my side, I'm not super knowledgeable on up to date right now data on what DeFi tools should we use, where are the best pools,
Mhm.
what are the avenues and mechanisms that we should do. So I think this is going to be a beautiful blending of our spirits and our knowledge in the space. So with that, let's go, baby. And
Oh,
shout out to
absolutely.
everybody that's watching.
Yeah, no, and please hit the like and share. Let's get the word out about DeFi because it's such a huge opportunity right now. And thank you, Kelly, for for all that because um, here in the near future, we're actually going to be launching the new Discord that's going to have Kelly in there with Bitlab Academy and all of his offerings, as far as knowledge bases and you know uh, you know like academies, to learn and stuff like that. I'm going to be in there for DeFi. Jeff will be in there for airdrops. You're going to have Discover Crypto. You're going to have Blockchain Basement, Drew and Isaac over there. You're going to have this family of people in there that are going to be these specialists in these different fields because Kelly's right. I mean, there is just so much, and that's why we're always talking about how bullish we are. There is so much going on in the crypto industry and the way that it's evolving. I mean, it's a freight train that is just fucking hauling ass right now. And you need to get on and figure out how you can maximize your earning in this magical mystery tour that we're on. So with that, I mean, this ties right into it. Is basically this Eric Balchunas. He is a really good person to follow on X. But ETFs on a Bitcoin bender have consumed nearly 25,000 Bitcoin in just 3 days. I mean, the big money is stacking. You got BlackRock, you got Strategy B, Satoshi Nakamoto has his, what how many Bitcoin that he, she, they own. I mean, there is just way too much going on to be bearish right now. Let's see. I think that's it. Let's get out of the last thing I want to talk about as far as the news. We did a video a couple of days ago that talked about a roundabout way that you can invest in it's called Biddle, and it's a BlackRock fund, but you have to be an accredited investor to basically to even be able to put money into it, which I think is total bullshit, but it is what it is. So I put out a video of a roundabout way that you can invest in this, and that way is by investing in the rails, the infrastructure that this runs on. And as you can see here, it is you got Pendle, Aave Labs, Horizon, Ethereal, not Ethereum, but Ethereal, Morpho and Maple Finance are some of those that are going to be, and then you got Redstone and Pith down here with Layer Zero and Wormhole for Oracle.
Wouldn't Ondo be within that as well?
I was surprised not to see Ondo. I would be very surprised if it's not somehow involved in it, seeing as it's a BlackRock thing.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I was maybe I was misinformed. I was under the assumption that Ondo was a part of the Biddle fund. Are you not talking about things that are in Biddle? Is this something slightly different?
no, this is actually right here, Athena and Securitize announced upcoming launch of Converge
Oh,
Bond.
I got you. I got you.
Yeah,
You're putting news on my radar, baby.
yeah. So, and like I said, a couple of days ago, we did we did an in depth, kind of a deeper dive on this. So I won't, I won't linger on this too long. But let's start getting into it. So I'm going to turn over the screen share here in a second to Kelly because I want to kind of set the stage here. So this right here is the crypto total three. So this is everything except for Bitcoin and Ethereum. All the alts and kind of what's going on today. And you can see that this is the pump that we've been experiencing. I'm on the hourly. Um, you know, but I don't think that we've, you know, I me personally, and Kelly, you're going to be able to speak more intelligently on this. We definitely haven't seen alt season yet, in my opinion. We're kind of in this uncharted territory. It feels like this cycle, relative to some of the other ones, just because it feels like we should have already, entered some sort of alt season. And I know we had the pump before back in what was it, December, January, and then we had that big pullback. But if you could, Kelly, I kind of want to start out with you just explaining, excuse me, basic support and resistance levels, because I'm going to tie that into DeFi here in a second. And if you could show us a little bit about how to find ranges, and then I'll tie that into DeFi.
Absolutely. Well, let's start with a chart similar to the one that you have, but this is looking at the basically crypto total market cap minus Bitcoin. So you mentioned a second ago about whether or not if we've had an alt season. Well, I think all of us would agree this is the alt season we want right here. This right here. I mean, the massive. This is an increase in market caps of the everything in crypto outside of Bitcoin. Right now, in these periods preceding this was a pretty big run, but a sell off. Another big run. Oh my God, it's over, only to launch. We saw this also back in 2015 and 2017. We have initial run up, a sell off, secondary run up, sell off. It's over. No, that's just getting started. Similarly, if you look at this extended out, and I'm gonna flesh out the support and resistance because this is going to be critical here. We see in this current range that we've had, we had two round trips, which has felt very different this cycle, where it's like, are we not going to get it? I think it's just been a little bit extended. Also, considering the fact that not only do we have the excitement about the change in dynamic of BlackRock adding a Bitcoin spot ETF announcement before the ETF went live, right? That changed the hope of the game. And then we had what I consider Epoch 1, which is pre Bitcoin ETFs going live. They got approved on January 10th. And in record breaking time, we had 11 Bitcoin ETFs go live on January 11th, January 10th, I mean, it was the next day, and it wasn't one, it was a flurry of them went live. Now, why is that important? Why does that change what we're looking for when we're forward looking in this market? Because when we're looking at technical analysis, we're looking at lines on a chart. Essentially, we're looking at different levels on a chart of where price action has had interaction before, and how we can sort of use shapes and patterns and key levels of interest to help determine what might likely happen next. And again, it's never guaranteed. And that's why, as much as there's some people that are just technical analysts, they're just looking at a chart. I still think, especially with where we're at and how nascent and how early we are in this crypto ecosystem, we still need to consider, large in part, what the context of the narrative is outside of just looking at the chart patterns here. Well, we have a channel here, and okay, great. Where are we also, how can we utilize what the forward looking idea of the change in shape of the global outlook on crypto? So we had the Epoch 1 pre ETFs, which was crypto on its own out in the wilderness, wild, wild west. And I've been in 3 cycles now. I've been in about 10 years in the crypto market. So I've seen all kind of different shapes of the context of nobody I knew in person had anything to do with crypto. And I was a wild, wild west black sheep, baby. I'll tell you what. And now I go nearly anywhere and people have, one, heard about it. I think there's still a lot of ignorance out there, but 3, there's a lot more people that have participated now. And I go to conferences where I'm surrounded by thousands of people that are, very much involved in crypto. And I talk to, I mean, with what I do at Discover Crypto, Bitlab Academy, and then also I'm doing a bunch of stuff on the hosting a lot of different conversations on the Mario Nawfal channel. I'm talking to anywhere from 1 million to 3 million people a week. It just blows
Yeah.
my mind how much this ecosystem has grown. So
And we're
while we're
still
going to look at technical analysis, key lines, the levels of support and resistance, and how to define ranges, also do note, and this is why I'm saying Epoch 1, pre-Bitcoin ETFs, to now Epoch 2, which is really the starting gate. You're still early. You have not missed the boat. You're still ahead of over 7 billion people in the world. And institutions are just now stacking in. This is Epoch 2, where we're at that late stage of still early adoption. But the shifting winds as this regulatory support versus regulatory obscurity or complete resistance that we saw prior to January 11th, 2023. We have so much. Is it 2023, 2024? I don't even remember at this point. 2024. 2024 was the ETFs approvals. So
yeah.
when we're looking, for instance, at this chart right here, all of this history prior was incredible speculation, but in a very wild, wild west manner, but also much, much smaller market caps. Now, why is this important when we're about to talk about support and resistance? Because as this market matures, the liquidity in the market, liquidity meaning money in the assets that we're talking about, the liquidity has gotten larger. So when I'm thinking about that, I consider, okay, if you want to turn a ski boat, how fast can you turn it? You can turn it almost immediately because the mass of that boat is relatively small compared to a cruise ship. If you want to turn a cruise ship, it might take miles to turn all the way around, or it might take, however, like an exponential larger amount of time to stop that boat from even just going forward in a straight line. It takes so much more energy because there's so much more mass in
Yes.
markets. Market caps essentially are like the mass of that asset. So when you're
That's a
looking at
that's
these,
a great analogy.
oh,
That's
thank you.
that really is a great analogy because I mean that's something I've been talking about for quite some time. Just basically that as this institutional money comes in, and that market cap grows, the volatility we're going to lose volatility. So yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, it's a great. We're at a weird crux where we're going to see diminishing returns or a decrease in volatility over time, but we're on this what I call, for those of you that don't know, S curve of adoption. This is an important graph to see. This right here. Do you see this right here? This is important on a number of levels. One, because you have the early adopters, then you have the early majority. But look at this parabolic trend that happens here. I still believe this. This is not only going to happen with the number of adopters that come in, but because of this influx in certain assets, not every asset. In certain assets, I still think we're going to have an expanse or an increase in the amount of price activity, price action to the upside. Bitcoin, for instance, as large as it's gotten in terms of the liquidity or the market cap. When we look at the Bitcoin, the total Bitcoin market, the total crypto market cap, we're nearing $3 trillion. Well, $3 trillion, over 63% of this 3 trillion, $3 trillion market cap for every crypto out there. 63% of that is comprised of Bitcoin by itself. So this
Yep.
has the largest market cap, $1.84 trillion. Massive. I still think because of the fixed supply, remember, there's can only be 21 million. And we are right now entering a stage in the market where we're about to get a massive influx of adopters, while we're also seeing a massive decrease in supply, aka supply shock. What drives every asset price anywhere in any market in history ever? Doesn't matter what the asset is. It is what is the supply and what is the demand. Now
Well,
we have this asset that most
keep in
people
mind, there's a lot of Bitcoin that is burned because
lost.
yeah, I mean, like, Satoshi Nakamoto's hasn't moved in how long? There's all those people that, lost hard drives or threw away hard drives that had Bitcoin on it. So it's actually could be a lot less than that 21 million. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, of course. But, we have. I mean, even if it was a 21 million total, and everybody had that still, This is a complete inverse, a complete one. It's a literally a different universe than any other money system or any other asset you could even consider. Even gold, which I think is a great asset for a store of value. The truth about gold is it's still a controlled market, that the market is shaped also by the people that are out there mining it. And if you find an area that has a massive deposit, that could actually drive the price of gold down, because all of a sudden you can flood the market with more gold. It's an unknowable that is a very real tangent there. And the US dollar, what's made me laugh most over the last 7 or 8 years is what, especially 5, 6 years ago, when this was a pervasive discussion point. Why would I get Bitcoin? That's magic internet money. It's printed out of
Yeah.
nothing. And I'm like, have you not looked at every fiat money system, aka US dollar, Canadian dollar, the peso, the bolivar? It doesn't matter. They're all printed
You're
from
preaching to the
nothing.
choir.
So
I'm one of those people. I had a buddy come up to me back in, I want to say it was like 2011, and was like, "Dude, there's this thing Bitcoin. We should both put $100 in and see what will happen." And I laughed at him. I was like, "Dude, that sounds like something that dorks in their mom's basement trade, like Pokemon cards." And I laughed at him. He did it and put a little bit more than $100. But now he's one of those that has a hard drive that has about $500,000 on it that he forgot how to access. But if I would have listened and not just shirked it off, I would have had a big old chunk of change right now.
But I think it's just important for all of us to realize, and not only for every one of you that's watching right now. Apparently, there's a little over 100 on YouTube, and I just saw over on Veteran Cryptos, we got about 191 watching on the live stream there. I retweeted that as
About
well.
300 total.
Every one of you should retweet when you're watching these. It's free content. Show some love, get this information out. But I share
Thank
this with all of you because even if you're aware of this and you've heard this time and time again, we all need to have the vocabulary, the nomenclature, and the know-how to have these conversations with others. Because I was resistant to it at first. Took me about 6 or 8 months before I actually was like, you know what, all right. And it, like, just like I had Dark Side of the Moon on the other day, brilliant guy, and he was just outlining that the quickest sell to buy Bitcoin and get involved in crypto in any aspect is do a transaction. Just do a transaction. Send it to anybody in the world. Could be $5, $100. Okay, do that. You send it, they get it back. I mean, it's basically immediate. Okay, it's 10 minutes. That is immediate compared to any international
Oh,
bank payment system. I used to
if
live in
you ever
Thailand.
sent
It
money
would take me 2
overseas,
weeks to send money to
yeah,
myself from my other bank account because I had to go through the international
yeah,
plummet.
and
So
sometimes it fails.
yeah, sometimes it fails, or sometimes they deny it because they want to know what it's my motherfucking money. Don't tell me how I'm going to spend it. I'm sorry for the
Exactly.
language, but that is the absolute truth. And when people start using this, they realize. So let's have the vocabulary to describe these things to people, but also when all of us are in it, how the hell do we know where the hell it's going? Kelly, I talk to people all the time. They go, Kelly, how are you sure that we're going to have this type of thing happen in the cycle? When people that are completely out of this, I say, well, first off, let's look at previous cycles. Okay. Let's look at previous cycles just on the halving, right? The halving is how much miners get rewarded for auditing the blockchain. Yes, the entire blockchain is audited by hundreds of thousands of computers every 10 minutes. The Pentagon hasn't passed a damn audit in over 7 years. I'm not sure if they've ever passed an audit.
Don't get me
The
started
entire
on that.
Bitcoin network is audited every 10 minutes by 100,000 or more computers out there. And they agree on every transaction that's ever happened. And then they compete to confirm the block.
Yep.
Whoever solves a cryptographic equation first, they get the reward. That reward is new supply of Bitcoin. But Kelly, I thought you said it's a fixed supply. Yes, but it started with Bitcoin at zero and has to basically inflate to a total inflation of 21 million. And that's why you see these halving cycles where the halving is the reward to miners gets cut in half, right? My mom said, Kelly, are you worried about the halving last year? I said, no. She goes, isn't your Bitcoin going to get cut in half? I'm like,
Right?
there's so much ignorance around all this. So once you understand the halving means the new supply gets cut in half, which is what happens with the Bitcoin. Well, let's go over to my page real quick, just so you all realize how ridiculous it is. Bitcoin's new supply gets cut in half every 4 years. Well, this is the US dollar supply. 80%, 80% of every dollar that has ever been printed was printed in the last 5 years. This is completely an exponential opposite from what Bitcoin is. So now that we've grounded that, I can look at the cycles on just a basic level, 4-year cycle that has played out, and I do think is going to extend beyond this. But when the halving happens, which is this line right here, this line right here, or this line right here, what's the shaded area? It's shading how far we've moved from the halving. So you can see what previous cycles look like. And what do you see? The halving launch, having a little bit of a pullback, but absolute parabola. Having right here, right into a parabola. Having right here, well, we have a new cycle now with all this new institutional money, but it hasn't performed like that before. Well, has it? Because on this pullback, this is 107% pump from here to here. Remember, this is an exponential chart. This is logarithmic. So I understand a general framework of where the cycles are going to go. So let's go over to Bitcoin. Let's go to Bitcoin right here. Zoom out on this. Okay, look at this on the weekly chart. Zoom in. This is just the current bull cycle. Yes, we're still in a bull cycle. Wasn't this a bear market? Sure, on a 4-hour time frame. But when you look at this in terms of the macro trend we're trying to understand, let's actually turn off all the lines. We see this is rise. We always want to see in a bull trend a rise, retrace, which means pullback, continuation. So we have a rise, retrace, pullback, right? Continuation. Now we have a retrace here. It might have broken down, but continuation, rise, retrace, continuation, retrace, continuation. This is the most beautiful bull trend I've ever seen. And in the fact of this pullback here,
in that consolidation.
Yeah, like it's a pullback, kind of testing where the bulls come in, allowing a little bit of the overheatedness to say, okay, is the cycle over? No, you have a little bit of sell off, which creates opportunity for buying, or in DeFi, figuring out where your ranges are going to be. So in the case of this right here, we want to talk about support and resistance. So let's actually go to a fresh chart. Let's go to BTC USD. I'm going to pick a chart from an exchange I've never used.
Just pick whatever.
There we go.
And I actually have my my plume chart where I have the ranges and the pools that I'm currently in. And after you explain it all, I can actually show kind of why I picked the levels I did.
Of course.
And by all means, Kelly, I want you to critique me and be like, well, that line's bullshit.
No, absolutely. I mean, one of the first things I would say start with is just horizontal support and resistance. What is that? Well, think of it. If you stood out of your chair right now and you're standing in your room, what are you standing on? You're standing on the floor. So that is an area of support of where price action is. So let's just start. Let's go. We're going to look at a macro chart and then we'll zoom in. So very quick right here, boom. I could put my mouse there and I could come over here and draw a line. I'm going to teach you some secret tips here. If you're on a PC, it's Alt. If you're on a Mac, it is Option, but either Option or Alt, same thing. So Alt or Option, H, boom, you get a horizontal line. Because why? Because that's where this bounced right here. So that's where the bottom was. Now on the way up, boom, this is where it rejected. So let's draw a line right there, Option H. So now we have support and resistance. But note that support can end up being resistance, and resistance can end up being support. What do I mean? At this point, boom, this rejected. So we know this is an area into the future we want to watch for as price goes up. And so what happens here? The price is moving up. And if we see, I'm going to go to support. You go to a smaller chart so we can actually see the price action. What happened when we got to that level? The previous price action gave a great outline of where some trouble is going to be. Look, rejection. Let me make a brighter line here real quick. I'm going to make this so you can see right there. Okay. So the previous price action gave a great indication where you might see an area of trouble, rejection, maybe a little bit. And this is exactly what we got. But then if you scroll over here, look, it also acted as support again. So it acted as resistance one more time. And then as the price action came back down, support. Now it's just kind of, it lost this. This is the, what do you call it? The FTX debacle. So, but this did act as support several times in here. So what I like to do, that's just a basic support and resistance. So then we can do this again. Let's do Option H, and we can go across and look. Yes, we had some deviations above, but there was a lot of interest at this zone. Now we have another one right here. Now this gets messy when you have horizontal lines all the way across your chart. So what I like to do, I'm going to remove all 5 drawings. What I like to do, instead of H, which is the horizontal line, I like to do Option J or Alt J because that's a horizontal ray. Let's do another one here. Now we got some levels. We're just looking at, this is the most basic levels here. In this case, this was a low. Let's actually delete this. We're just doing these all-time high regions. So we have levels that we see are very key levels of interest. So these are horizontal levels of support. So, or in this case, resistance. But what do you notice here? The price action came down almost to it, but didn't quite get to it. But we didn't mark out this one right here, which was at when it happened an all-time high. And look at where price action came to. Price action on the way up. And I talked on my channel very regularly. Oh, we're so excited about going higher. Let's look at higher targets, but let's also map out if it were to go down, where's the most likely area for it to go down to?
Absolutely.
It would be to the previous range high. And this is so regular that it's going to shock you. Look, price action. Oh, it's so excited. Boom, boom, boom. Where did it come down to? Boom. Previous range high right in there.
Yep.
I can draw a line there to show you. Look at that. Price action came back, tested previous range high. Price action came back right here. Boom. Tested where? Previous range high. I mean, look at the regularity of this is nothing.
And I'll bet you if you throw a fib up, those will align like almost perfectly.
Yeah. I mean, you get very much so, very regularly. They tend to be, let's see. Yeah, that's just basically right on the golden pocket.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, so, and that's a great point. Just so you all know, you can just draw price action support and resistances. What I like to do when I do that, if price action is doing something, in this case, look, it lost the 382, just lost it entirely. But on the way up, rejected right at it. Look at that. Now, what did it do? It came down to this horizontal line that we had from the previous range high. And this just substantiates it when you also have the golden pocket fib, the 618 right regionally in that zone. Now, it didn't quite hit the golden pocket, but had you not had these horizontal lines on it from the previous range high and you just did the fib, you might not have, if you were going to trade that, you might not have got it because it didn't quite hit it. But knowing that the previous range high was there, it gives you a zone between the fib and also the previous range of support that regionally it's going to be in there. In fact, if you look at my chart that I have that I was using a lot, I mean, it came right into that zone. So I'm going to go back to that chart we were just on. There we go. Now, the other thing, that was support and resistance horizontal. Now, what I like to do is I don't want to have one measurement that I'm looking at, in this case, horizontal lines. I also want to see the diagonal, basically support and resistances that can move on a diagonal. In this case, we can see, I can just see it with my eyes because I've been doing this so long. But
yeah.
If you want to you can come here and do a horizontal ray and just click once on the chart here. Where's it at?
You can see it with your elven eyes.
I don't think I clicked. And then just move this and see where the interactions are. I'm just moving this to touch right here. And look at that. I mean, it's just like this. I mean, this has been really support. This shows, now it didn't get there. Does this indicate if we do break down? Well, look, we have a horizontal intersection of this previous range high and this rising level of support right in here. Is this telling us maybe this comes into the zone? Maybe. But the thing about markets is we don't know. It's an ever-chasing game of where the probabilities lie. And I'd rather be safe and maybe have some buy orders here or not freak out if this does come down into this. For me, I would freak out if this comes down and loses this and comes down. I don't freak out. I mean, my bullish narrative in the near term would be I'd be looking for lower prices. But I see another trend line right here as well. I can just see, I'm going to actually come over here. I'm going to do
actually real quick. I always appreciate ECA and Prey showing up. He's kind of our resident bear. But where is it at? He had a question for you. Let me pull it up. Oh, here we go. He's saying that's why I say 69K is the true support, Kelly. It was tested 3 times before, breaking through, but we never went back and back tested it. What do you have to say about that?
Well, let's look. Oops.
Gotta show some love for the Bears.
No, I mean, 69K is a level that I was talking about as well as a possibility. So let me see. So I just want to see, we have these two diagonal trend lines and see how this one's lower. This one to this point right here, perfectly bounce, look, deviation. Yeah. But if we go over to the other chart, that I have. Look at the box that I have lined out here. The box that I have lined out here goes down to basically right about 69K,
Okay.
69K up to 74K. This is the area I was really watching for a potential move down to kind of finish flushing out the bulls before we had to move to the upside. But
Got it.
as it stands right now, I think that's a lot less likely with the way just the shape of what's happening in the market and how much bullishness is coming in. The fact that, okay, now I just want to outline this a bit further. We have a rising level of supports on a diagonal, horizontal level of previous resistances that now acted as support. But then we also, and you all, some people only do horizontals, some people do diagonals. I like to get a couple different views on it, which why you've seen on a number of my different charts, I have them drawn in different ways because I don't want to just have one chart I look at all the time. I want to see, because otherwise you get convoluted. Otherwise you have 1,000 lines and you want to have it a bit clear. Like this chart right here looks different
When I
than
was
this.
trying to learn TA, that's what happened to me. Is I was like, okay, here's this line, this line. Next thing I know, it's just like a spider web, and it makes no sense.
Right. So now we also have the pattern, which is this. Let me make this a bit brighter. We have the pattern trade rather than just horizontal support and resistance. Let me make this a bit brighter. There we go. I can't. There we go. The stop sharing button is right next to the OK button on TradingView. But now we also have this falling wedge pattern. So the problem with this is you have a couple different things going on here. You have horizontal support and resistances. You have this diagonal support of on this trajectory where price action is relatively bounced, and it's pretty pretty spot on. But then you have the pattern TA also, where you have a falling wedge. Falling wedges, patterns that are constricting or angled to the downside, falling wedges, falling channels. They tend, again, I want to say they tend to break to the upside. What we've seen on smaller time frames, this is more of a midterm macro chart. What we've seen on like a 24-minute chart, you might have a pattern that you're like, this always breaks bullish, and it will, but it will wash out and fake out, bear trap to the downside before it goes up. So you've got to be a little bit careful here. When we're looking at ranges here, though, this falling wedge coming into a known level of previous resistance, which is now support, this gave me a lot of confidence this was going to move to the upside. And that's why I was calling for it. That's why I was looking, April 7th, which was the peak in the VIX, which is a volatility index on stock markets. And we had a bullish divergence. And we were, in a bullish pattern. I was looking at different types of ingredients that were reading different types of things that were all suggesting a bullish trajectory. So it wasn't like, oh, it bounced, so it's going to go up. Well, it bounced and it had bullish divergence. Now, what's bullish divergence? Well, we have the patterns suggesting things, certain key levels from previous range highs acting as support. And then we also have the price action moving to the downside. I'm just looking at the lows here. These lows are lower and lower and lower and lower and lower. Okay, is it going to go lower? Well, let's look at, are they fueling up the race car to move up, or is this car still out of gas? Well, I look at the RSI, very simple, basic indicator. It's free on every one of your trading views. Come up here, click on this indicator button right here. See the little squiggle and just type in RSI. You got it right there. Hit the star. It will be in your favorite, so you can always find it. And it pulls up on your chart. Now, the relative strength index, you're looking at the underlying activity, essentially, versus what's happening with price action. So now, while this does not mean oversold, and this does not mean overbought. People use those terms, and it can mean that, but it means the strength index, right? Now, this can mean it's getting to oversold, but just realize this doesn't mean it has to bounce when this hits this. I'm more interested in looking at the RSI over a period of time as it relates to the price action over a period of time. While we see the price action on Bitcoin
So would
falling
that be like
lower,
a
low, lower,
correlation?
low, lower, low.
Are
Hold
you
on one
looking
sec.
for like correlations or anything like that, or
What's that?
are you looking for correlations, or what exactly are you looking for as when it comes to price action against the RSI?
I want to see what's known as a divergence. I want to see strength going the opposite direction of the price.
Okay.
In this case, we're seeing the price, the lows, specifically the lows here. I'm looking at the lows
Okay.
going lower and lower and lower and lower. And then,
I
okay,
see it.
And then
So
we
the
say,
line on price is going down and the RSI is going up. So they're doing the opposite, like you're talking about.
so yeah, we're seeing right here. Hold on, where is it at? There we go. We see this price right here moving to the downside, lower, lower, lower. And we just, okay, let me see what the strength is doing. Well, man, in that same period of time, we are seeing the price, the strength. It's the, it's AK, you could say it's either not as weak here, or you can say it's actually getting stronger here because the strength is going up. So the strength is going up while the price is falling. This is signaling
It's
behind the
coiling up.
scenes, before the news has come out, before any of this,
Yeah.
the underlying strength is telling you that the bearish momentum is starting to be weaker, and you might
Gotcha.
see a trend pivot. So not only do you see the strength ticking up while the price is falling, you also see the bounce here. And this is where you combine the different ingredients. You have the
So
pattern.
real quick for the listeners, I want you to understand the significance of this. It would be a perfect time, in my opinion, if I was looking at this, to enter a liquidity pool, because you're going to make the most money in a liquidity pool when it's ranging sideways or when it's going up. So you're going to get price appreciation and earn fees. So in this case, it would be a great time, like if you have some dry powder and USDC on the side, it might be a good time to enter a position like this where you see this divergence to where you can get some price appreciation on this asset plus earn yield. So anyway, just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, but my whole point with all this, with technical analysis, is there isn't a signal that works. There is a combination of signals, and it's a lot of times different ingredients. Like if you ever played Zelda, based on the different things you threw in the pot, you would get different powers, right? And so, but you needed different ingredients to make things happen. In this case, we have the price falling, and actually, it's falling. Kelly, isn't it bearish? It's falling in a bearish formation, and it had not yet broken below the previous range high. So it's still a very bullish structure. It's in a falling wedge, which is a bullish breakout structure. We have the bull div that finally forms getting towards the end of this falling wedge, about 60, 70 or more percent of the way through. Bullish divergence, positive formation. It tests the previous range high. And then this is the 12-hour or the daily, you can look, but then you get down into the 4-hour and say, okay, let me get a little bit more granular. And then you see a price action formation, price action by itself showing a W formation, double bottom, which the candles themselves are signaling, okay, the bears tried, cool. The bulls brought it back up. The bears tried, they couldn't take it lower. So now you're seeing in the candles themselves a slight variation in the activity of the bears. Whereas before, it's lower, lower, lower. Oh, same. Bears don't have the same momentum to the downside. And you have strength coming in, and you're bouncing off a range low of this pattern. So what are we looking for? Now we're looking for a bounce to break past the previous high. So now we're talking about lows being lower. Now we're trying to, from the most immediate closer range, we want to see the price break beyond the most immediate previous high. Boom. Look, we got a higher high there. Higher high. Oh, we pulled back. Oh, shit. Now we have a full change of pace here. Bullish divergence, falling wedge pattern, suggesting bullishness, W formation, price action breaks past the most immediate range high. Now we have a higher low, which is a complete change, but it
Yep.
doesn't mean it's guaranteed. But then look, now we have a new higher high. Shit, now we have a new higher low. Now we've formed a trend back to the upside.
Gotcha.
It consolidates here. Now, why does it not just continue immediately? Well, looking at the pattern that we drew, we have a defined from all the way back here, January 20th, the inauguration day. Doesn't matter that on this asset, could be any asset. We have a rejection, 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 rejection. Oh my God, we actually broke through, finding support at the zone, a known level of interest based on this trend. And then once it breaks free, boom, pops up, breaks free, pops up. So because you're getting that trend reversal with a little hesitation because it has been to the downside. So these are the kind of moments that I really like to get involved. You don't have to buy this bottom. Wait for this to push up, have a little pullback, confirm the move. We always want to see a breakout of a line, either consolidation and continuation, or better yet, a breakout of a line, a retest. You want that retest and then the continuation. This is, you're looking for the move right, usually about where's my line at? You're looking for that move right about right here where you break out of a trend, you come back and test it for a confirmation, and it's not just a testing. The testing is constructed of this also on a very small time frame showing signs of reversal. For instance, if we were to zoom in on this much more granular and look at there we go. So we see, look, so this breaks out, it comes back into the trend, and it's not exactly on the line, but regionally. And then what do we get? We got another one of those W patterns. Boom. Okay. Now it's showing signs of life to hold this zone. Look, pushes up, comes back. We have a higher low, pushes up. We were not quite getting a higher low until we break through. Boom, right here. Boom, we break through. But again, look what happened. Tested the previous range high. It's amazing how these things give you a map for where a price action is going to go. Now, in this case, look, broke up. Where did it test?
Mhm.
Previous range high. It's amazing how these charts give you,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And here I'll tie all this together real quick. Let me share my screen. So this is my actual plume pools that I'm in. I have them charted out, and so I have two of them that are ranged. I have one that's full range. It earns no matter what, 24/7, 365. Doesn't matter what plume does. But I have two that have different ranges. So the narrower the range, the narrower you're able to map out these ranges, you're going to earn a higher APR. But it's a double-edged sword. It's going to be harder to stay in range because if you're not in that range, you're not earning yield. So, that's why, I wanted to bring Kelly on and explain all this is so that you can pick better ranges. It's important that you're able to, stay in range as long as possible because you don't want to have to rebalance, especially if it goes out the bottom. Like right now, I'm in a wrapped ETH USDC pool that the bottom end of the range that I picked was, like a month or two ago, it was $2,400. So that has been out of range for quite some time
So but
because
let me ask you a question though, because
oh, go ahead,
I think this is very important for everybody.
please.
Everybody gets so locked in on looking at Link USD or Link USDT or Bitcoin USD USDT, ETH USD USDC USDT, either whatever stable. And
Yeah,
reality, and a lot of times that what I from my knowledge, a lot of times in DeFi, a lot of pools that you're in have nothing to do with USD at all. You're looking at this asset as it relates to this other asset. Now you can also
yes,
do DeFi pools with stables, but there's a lot of times will be Arrow versus wrapped ETH. So you
yeah,
have to
yeah,
look at that specific chart and say, because they both could be performing like a motherfucker going just booming, but you want to
yep.
see, are they traveling together for like, let me just show.
Correlation.
Yeah,
So there's
correlation.
basically correlation charts like on DeFi Llama, and you know what? I'll just pull it up real quick. And I'm glad you bring that up, Kelly. Let me bring up there you go, correlation. So this is the correlations matrix for and you can add and take away. I've added a bunch, but basically what this is just a really easy graph. So like Kelly was talking about, if you're looking at like say wrapped ETH Bitcoin, that is a really low correlation. The closer you are to like one, obviously ETH and wrapped ETH are going to be perfectly correlated. They're going to move exactly the same. So that's a one. If you're down here where you're at like a 0.56 or a 0.14, that's a very low correlation. And what that means is if you're doing like wrapped ETH and Bitcoin, if Bitcoin is pumping and ETH is not doing anything or going down, then you're going to get divergence loss. So if you're in a pool that has those two assets, as those two assets move away from each other, you're going to move out of range a lot faster. Now, if they're moving together, they're correlated, and that means that you're going to stay in range. You're going to have, the graph is going to, and actually here I'll bring that up. Dex Screener is
Mm,
the best place to look up these pools. So let me pull up Dex Screener real quick, and I'll share that with you. And so this is where you can actually pull up the charts for these actual liquidity pools. So you can go to some place like Uniswap or Aerodrome, and you can actually copy. Here, I'll show you real quick. So, say like Ellie was talking, asking about Moonwell, if there was pools that she could get into, and yes, on Aerodrome, there's a bunch of different pools you can get into here. Say you want to look at this USDC well pool, you can hover over this, and it will tell you the pool address. You can copy that, come over here to Dex Screener. You come up here to the top left, hit search, you paste it into there, and it pulls up. You can see this is the Aerodrome. It's on base chain, well, USDC. Click on it, and it will actually bring up the chart and show you, how it's been moving. And so with this, you can do what all this stuff that Kelly was just going over, and you can find a range. And I mean, it looks like this has been ranging quite well.
And
I
and
like
just
to,
and just to preface as well, or follow up with that,
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
I kind of went into little bit broader range of TA than you'll probably need on this. But the horizontal support and resistances, identifying lows of a range and highs, that will really help you define areas, especially when they're I know the tighter the better a lot of times, but when you
yeah.
can find a good, I'd rather than having a super tight range that's making me a lot of money in this moment, if I can find something that even if it's somewhat wide, if I know it can go for 3 months, that's going to actually end up being less stress and more money total over time. So really finding those pairs of assets that work together and assets that you have that you want to participate in DeFi, I think is that's the magic.
And I'm a huge fan of paired assets where one is a stable coin and one is a bag that I'm trying to stack, especially on Uniswap, because the way Uniswap pays out is like my Plume USDC pool. It pays me out almost an equal amount of USDC and Plume. And I'm trying to stack Plume anyway, but I want some dry powder as well. So it's stacking that dry powder in the form of USDC that I can take that yield anytime I want. I can harvest that if from all my different pools and buy into another pool, or buy a new token launch because my boy Jeff told me about a cool new DeFi project that's launching, like Maverick or something like that, that I want to get into. And I just have that sitting on the side, but at the same time, I'm stacking my Plume bag. So, that's the important, thing to understand as well, is how these different platforms pay out. Aerodrome Finance pays in nothing but the Arrow token. So again, these are my pools, and the reason I picked these levels is you can see that, just like Kelly was talking about, on the chart here, before, when we were in this range, I was earning a ton, but it came up, it rejected off this resistance. It came up, it blasted through, it tested it, went back up, came back down, did the same thing, and then you saw all through here, it's just beating its head up against that glass ceiling trying to get through. And so that's what made me pick, this, between here at like 9 cents and up here at about 15, 15.5 was my previous ranges. Now, when it came through and it broke into this new range, it came up, went down, pumped up here to about 25 cents, and then came down and kind of started ranging again. I've been in these ranges for probably at least a couple of weeks now. But you can see that my tighter one that's really earning me a lot right now is, I did, basically what Kelly was talking about. I found that kind of support, over here. It was, it turned into resistance a little bit. Right here, it's just been ranging nicely. This wider range is probably going to stay in range for quite some time, but I'm earning about an average between my three pools about 10 to 12% a month. It just that steady income just flowing in. So that's kind of, oh, and real quick, in the chat. I think it was Nate or somebody wanted me to show this. This is bfat.io. This is a DeFi aggregator. So if you want to look at a lot of different platforms like Uniswap, Aerodrome, Velodrome. Let's see what all we got. Let's go to pools and I'll show you. So you got Uniswap, Pancake Swap, Sushi Swap, Velodrome, Camelot, Aerodrome, Base Swap, Phoenix Finance, Wagme, Shadow, and SwapX. You can look at all of these platforms. It has pools from all of these platforms in one place. Plus, you have the added functionality that if you have positions, then you can rebalance from here. You can withdraw from here. You can compound. If you have earnings, you can actually compound your earnings back into the pool, or you can harvest without having to close out the position. You can't do that on a lot of other platforms like Aerodrome. So it gives you a lot of added functionality. And then there's some automations that I don't use because they charge you a somewhat steep fee to automate. I like doing a lot of manual processes on my pools. So this is a great tool to use. But yeah, like I said, DeFi Llama, there's a bunch of great tools here to see like where the volume is, because volume is direct proportional to what you're going to earn. Without volume, you're not, doesn't matter what the APR is. If there's no volume, you can have 1,000,000% APR and you're not earning shit. It
Yeah.
can have really high volume and a lower APR and you're going to earn a lot more because that's
Well,
what
it's
you're
it's
earning
just
money.
a metaphor on life. The higher the APR, or the higher the reward, it's usually
Yeah.
almost 100% usually higher the risk. So you're taking on more risk, and they're trying to entice. I remember I was using DeFi pools for eGold back in the day, and I remember it was like 16,000% APR. It was something ridiculous, but I had a lot of issues with it, and it was also very spotty because of volume, and that's why they
Yeah.
do those big numbers, so it attracts people in.
Yep. Yeah. Do not chase APR or APY. Um, and actually I'll touch on this real quick. Actually, this is the kind of the DeFi commandments. It's not to offend anybody if you're super religious, but um, this is the rules that I learned from Crypto Labs research. I actually had Lucas on Monday. Great episode if you want to watch that. He's kind of my mentor and been the one that's been teaching me a lot. But choosing a liquidity pool, you want to have the highest TVL possible, the highest volume possible. You want to make sure that you believe in the assets long term. So if you end up going out of range, that you don't mind, diming handing or hodling those until you come back into range. Good blue chip assets. You want to make sure you're using trusted dexes like Aerodrome, like Uniswap, like Aave. Places that are not flash in the pan, like Kelly was just talking about. There's a lot of lesser known protocols that will incentivize people to bring their liquidity by promising these huge APRs. Stay away from that. Don't chase that. They can go out of business and you lose your money. High
Yeah.
correlation. We talked about correlation. Over on DeFi Llama, you can come here and you can look at the correlation if you're thinking of getting into an H bar AVAX liquidity pair. Um, it doesn't have that great of a correlation. So it might not be one that you want to get into. So it's things like that are important. But last but not least, the reason that I wanted Kelly to come on is explain to you how to read, the basics of a chart, because you want to enter pools when they're trending sideways or when they're going up for DeFi. Reason being is if it's trending sideways, even if you're not getting price appreciation, the longer you're in range, the more you're earning yield. If it's trending up, you're going to be earning yield and getting price appreciation. So, it's important to be able to read these charts and know, what the trend is. when he was talking about a bullish divergence or a bearish divergence. Those are the indicators you want to be looking
Well,
for. And then,
on that note,
oh, go
again,
ahead.
I gave quite a bit of stuff regarding TA, but it's important to note, like using Bitcoin as an example, like what we were looking at before. Let me see if I have that chart. BTC,
Oh, here,
US,
I'll put you back up.
which chart was I doing? Onada or something? Yeah. So, although we're talking about trying to identify ranges, one of these things that you can note, not only for your buying and selling, because if you're in crypto, you're buying and selling at some point, right? But you're also doing DeFi. Now, if you are in a certain range and you see something bounce on a zone, you know it's going to go likely like this with the double bottom bullish divergence across a period of time. You know this is likely going to move up. And this point here, when you see something launching a lot of signals into this push from price action, a pattern bounce off support, double bottom formation, bullish divergence. That's signaling that there's probably a larger trend reversal coming, which we're seeing now, because not only do we get these higher highs, this higher high, but now we broke out of this entire range. And I mean, we're really getting a trend reversal. So this would have signaled that at the top, say this was a sideways range, not a diagonal range, you would have known here on this breakout coming on the support here coming into the zone, you might be looking on whatever pair this could have been if this was that chart, that you need to be eyeballing what your next range is going to be. So this is giving you that sort of forward looking insight to not be caught off guard. If you're looking at this back here, you would have known I'm going to want to keep an eye on this move to the upside. I may be looking at the range above this that I need to on whatever pair that you're on. So the TA is not only going to help you find areas of interest for buys and sells, but also forecast your shift and where your ranges are going to be, on your horizontal levels for that next liquidity pair range that you're trying to find.
And that's awesome, awesome alpha, brother. I really do appreciate you coming on and sharing this knowledge with us because I know that it's very basic for people like you that are super knowledgeable about TA and things like that. But for a lot of us, myself included, TA can be very very intimidating. Kind of like DeFi can be for a lot of people.
Yeah,
Is just because it's a lot of terminology that you might not be familiar with, um, and and so it can be discouraging. People will start getting into it, and they're just like, oh shit, and just give up. But I can't stress enough that now is the time to dig in and to invest in yourself and learn about TA. Watch channels like Kelly. He comes on daily and is very passionate about teaching TA. And then, people like myself, Crypto Labs Research, there's not a lot of people out there willing to teach DeFi. A lot of people don't want a lot of people to flood into DeFi because it ends up to where they don't earn as much. I don't care about that. I want you all to be successful. I want you all to be profitable. And that's why people like Kelly are here. And that's why I'm here. And Drew and Isaac over on Blockchain Basement. And you got TJ and DZ and Josh over on Discover Crypto. And why we're building out at our own expense a lot of these tools like the DeFi aggregator that me and Jeff are building, and a lot of these educational materials and the Discord that we're about to launch. This is all for you all to set you up for success. So we appreciate all of your support and showing up every day, investing in yourselves, so that you can build a future for you and your family. Do you have any closing comments there, Kelly?
it's about to get so incredibly super spicy in this market. Strap in. It's been a bit frustrating with the chop zone for people that weren't looking at the macro picture, but it's only getting better from here for those that are still here, for those that are stacking in. If you got shaken out or you made some bad decisions, listen, I lost 97% of everything that I had back in 2017 into 2018 in the markets, and I almost gave up. And I said, no, the markets aren't a scam. My lack of strategy is what screwed me over, and that's one of the reasons why I do what I do. I I make pretty damn good money. I'm pretty okay. I've been a performer my whole life. You know, I toured as a musician. I'm also ex Air Force, uh, retired from the military as well, so I have that income as well. I do this because I think this is the most important opportunity for so many people in the history of our. And how the hell is it during our time right now where we have all this access and if you're watching, that means you're ahead. Again, remember, you're ahead of 7 billion people in the world. If you want to wonder why you haven't won the lottery, you're not being grateful. You're alive, you're breathing, you're living in a time where even if you're poor as shit, you're living better than any king in history lived before 1900. Okay, you have a great roof over your head. You have a bed, even if it's a shitty bed. You eat food at restaurants where people come up and serve them to you on a plate. We have crypto now that has the ability to give us
Yep.
life and income strata, leapfrogging possibilities in ways that we've never imagined. The time is now, right now. So strap in, come and tune in here on DeFi Crypto Airdrops. Tune in over on Bitlab, Discover Crypto, Blockchain Basement, Frankie Candles, Tom Crown, what's his name?
The list goes on. Yeah.
Jason
Piano
Casper,
Matty B. Yeah.
yeah, Miss Teen Crypto. She has great info. I mean, there's so many different aspects out there. Dive in. The best thing you can do right now is just try things. Uh, Educate yourself. Get active. Even if it costs you money, go to either a local meetup and meet people that are in crypto in person, face to face. I'm in a digital world all day long, but I live for the conferences and meeting people and being surrounded by all crypto people. I mean, that's what this is
I
all
need to
about
I
for
need to
me.
start going to those, man.
Dude, come on. You coming to the Bitcoin conference?
I didn't join you guys early enough to get in on that, but yeah, I definitely need to start getting to some of those because I need to start getting out there glad handing, networking and putting some putting some palms to some people.
Well, come on, man. I look forward to meeting you in person, and I'm in this market all day long, every day. All you feel free to reach out to me. I'm over at Kelly Kellam. You can see it right under my face there. And I'm on Bitlab Academy every day. But I appreciate you coming on. I'm looking forward to you coming on tomorrow on Bitlab.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, no, it's like Kelly said, I'll be on his show tomorrow. So I probably won't do a live, but we'll just kind of be carrying on the conversation and. That's pretty much all I got for you. But yeah, make sure that you're following our family of channels. Blockchain Basement, Discover Crypto, Bitlab Academy, Kelly, and Blockchain Report for airdrops. And if you want, stop in on Sunday evenings, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And yeah, we'll definitely have to have you on, and I definitely want to have TJ on as well. And just yeah, we smoke cigars, drink some whiskey, and just talk shit. Honestly, it's I don't even care if the channel really grows. It's really just a time for me to kind of socialize with my brother and my buddies and stuff like that. Just kind of being out here in the cabin in the middle of the woods. It's kind of nice to stay in contact with some of my old peeps. But
For sure.
again, thank you, Kelly. I appreciate you and all that you do, and appreciate you all in the chat. Wispy, yeah, let's go through that real quick. Alexander, you're a G. You are a G. You help out Kelly
Absolutely.
so much, and you started helping me here. I appreciate you, Wispy. We got the Deadwood. Ellie, appreciate you. Made you a mod. Who else we got in here? We got Nate. We got Sufficient Enough. We got Uncle Tommy. We got Jay. We got all the crew in here. I appreciate you all. Much love, and we'll see you until next time. Veteran Crypto out.
Adios, everybody.